Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, talking some more baseball on the Sunday night. Come join us. Welcome back to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We are back for another week. Jeff, it's February. It's time to talk about baseball. If you guys can rate or review the podcast, it'd be greatly appreciated. We are sponsored by WynnBET. We appreciate them for their sponsorship all year long on all of our podcasts. Mr. Erickson, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Tired. For good reasons. I had friends in town.
You've been gallivanting the world with friends. It's tough.
Yeah, Joe Sheehan was in town, and my good friend Jason Gray, formerly from ESPN, now with the Rays, was in town, and we were doing some golfing. And then I had my adult league soccer league fired back up this evening, so I played soccer tonight. So that was good too. But it's a little tiring also, but that's okay. I'm excited to talk baseball. I'm excited we're back. I mean, it's a great schedule this week. I'm doing a couple of other hosts podcasts this week, jumping on with Howard Bender to talk Bengals, going to be on with Matt Williams this week. And then on Thursday, I'm hosting Reds consolation podcast, basically like, hey, at least the Bengals are good. That's what we'll be talking about, but that and, lockout. But I'm going to have Doug Dennis. I'm going to have Jenny Butler and Clay Link on. So that's going to be a fun one on Thursday. We're looking forward to that. And of course, Fred and I are on Tuesday. So lots of baseball talk.
I did the pitch con with Jenny Butler, and it was a lot of fun. She's really, really good ADPs player, so it was fun too. I never actually talked with her that long about baseball, so it was really fun to do it with her and Vlad Sedler, who obviously well. Yeah, it was fun. I have to admit that seeing all the nice comments and posts on Twitter talking about happy they were back made me feel good. It was I'm not fully into baseball yet, but that definitely pushed me towards starting to really ramp it up, and it was fun to see that everybody was happy that we were back. So we thank you very much for all the nice comments, everybody listening.
Yeah,
it does mean a lot watching. However, you happen to take in the podcast, we do greatly appreciate it. It was really fun to see that people were excited to have us to listen to on Monday mornings and maybe make their Monday morning a little bit better. So, obviously, we don't have any news and notes, Jeff. Usually, that's where I start off our podcast. I'm going to go ahead and skip all the news and notes this week. Do a little bit of draft strategy talk. I see some people on Twitter talking about there's a lot of player talk and not enough draft strategies. I'm going to do a little bit of that, and we're going to do some player talk. As I've started to really kind of take in the ADPs, I grabbed a bunch of players, and I thought their ADPs were pretty interesting as I was kind of giving it a really, my first really deep first glance at the ADPs. So we're going to talk about a number of players that kind of jumped out to me. I kind of want to get your thoughts on them, my thoughts on them, and we'll go from there. But we talked a little bit about kind of draft prep and how you start your prep last week, but I was curious. There's a lot of talk online, a lot of talk when we get to in person at events in Vegas. How do you use ADP? It's kind of a controversial topic. Some people are like, oh, these ADP sheep do this, but I tend to think it's a pretty valuable resource to use as a tool, not obviously as my draft sheet. But how do you go about using, say the NFBC ADPs? There's an ADP that you can sort by date. This is people that pay a lot of money to draft. People are not. It's not like a mock draft ADP like we had in the past, where someone would draft Jeremy Brown in the first round just to mess everybody up. These are people that are paying money. These are all paid drafts. How do you use the NFBC ADP as you do your draft prep and kind of get going in your drafts here?
Well, I mean, the first thing I do is, when I'm doing, say, for instance, looking at projections, make sure I don't forget anybody. That's a simple thing there. Go team by team.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey, here's this, here's this guy that's going at 450. Okay. That's worthy of projection. He's been drafted in all but 2 leagues, or, I try to get at least the top 600 projected. I do it stupidly hand by hand. And eventually I want to get over 800, 900 guys, and I'll try to get all those there. But, early on, in December, I want to get those. I want to make sure the top 500 are accounted for. I'm going to have 600 or so, but some guys are going to be different than my rankings. And I'll be like, oh, maybe I should look at this guy, and maybe I should give him a better projection now. And it's weird this year, though, because we have so many guys unsettled, so many so many moves still need to be made. But that's the first thing I do. I think another way ADP is handy is just it gives you a ballpark figure when certain categories are scarce, when certain runs are going to begin. Closers. Everybody's talking about closers right now, and for good reason. And you just have to realize the type of drafts that you're in. This is another thing we covered. If it's as you mentioned earlier, if it's a draft champions, a draft and hold type of league, they're going to go higher. But nonetheless, it'd be nice to know that. I'm starting up TGFBI this week. You got I think we got our yogurt assignments this week. So
it doesn't start till the 28th, right?
Okay, we just got our assignments. Okay.
Oh, I was gonna say if it starts tomorrow, I'm really in trouble.
Okay, crap. My bad. I just assumed that we're starting because we got our assignments. I mean, but yeah, okay. Good. I am doing one with the speakers for First Pitch Arizona. It's also
nice.
a draft champions. 15-team labor is coming up at on the 22nd. So, this will be good to kind of get an idea on some of these runs a little bit there. Labor is different because it's a standalone league and there is trading, so it's different. But nonetheless, it gives you a ballpark figure on value a little bit there.
Do you find yourself like you're at the draft table? You've obviously got your rankings, you made your projections, so you're pretty secure about what you like and don't like. But if you get here and you're like, oh, you're in a round, you're like, this guy's 20 past ADP. Does that enter in your head? How much do you get sucked into that thinking?
What catches my eye is if my ranking / projection spits out something that's like 75 above ADP,
yeah.
Or worse yet, I'm in a draft and he's gone 75 below my ranking and it's still there. It's like, okay, well, what am I missing here? Right. It does encourage me to dig in a little bit more. And sometimes I walk away like, okay, there's nothing wrong here. I like the projection. Let's keep going. Let's roll. Let's take him. Other times like, oh, I better change that a little bit there.
But like if you're actually in a draft and you get to, someone slips 2 rounds past ADP, are you looking at that? Like you obviously look at the news, see if something's wrong with the person, but do you let that enter your thinking? Like, is this like, quote unquote good value now? Or are you taking who you want to take? How much do you get sucked into that? Cause every once in a while I do, I hate to admit it, but there's times where I'm like, everybody in the world's picking this guy. He's 30 picks past, maybe it's time to snap him up here.
Unless you're not looking at it at all. And you put like a little piece of tape over the ADP column in the draft room. Yeah. It's impossible not to look at it, right? And it's impossible not to at least let that little synapse fire. I tried it. We all say, "Oh no, I'm independent of that." Yeah, I think that and default cues are naturally going to affect you.
And I think default cues are now by ADP, so it's kind of like become one and the same.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
So what I do is that when I'm doing draft prep, you and I talk about this a lot. We know enough that we know kind of generally where ballpark is, who's good, who's not good, and all that. But when I dig into a player, if I'm doing looking at first base, I'll look at everything. I'll do all my research, and then I'll look at ADP at the end and kind of get a feel for like, that's about where I thought he'd be, or maybe that's a target for me, maybe that's a fade for me. It more is like it sounds simple and stupid, but I'm trying to, find guys that I like more than the norm and like less than the norm. And it's just kind of how I'm drafting as I'm doing that. So I only use it at the end, but I only use it to figure out, I really like this guy. He's going to pick 90. Maybe I need to think about it in the 5th round because I don't want to lose this person. It's just really a guide for me to know, if I'm targeting someone, how much do I need to go up? If I'm not targeting someone, right. What is the point where the guy can go past where I like him? Where I'm like, I'll finally just take him. I mean, there are players that I won't take at all, but everybody's got a price. But for me, it's mostly just a tool to kind of figure out, who I like better than the pack, and that's really important to me when I'm drafting.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing is that there's a quantity that you need, and obviously a lot of talk about lately on draft strategy, game theory about not having to need something, but if there is, like if you do, then you need to know what's logical or what's realistic. Now, someone can jump that. And as we saw, like the high priced draft champions leagues that we've seen a couple times, you get some high profile players and there, it was like a jump fest, ADP jump fest. And, you got to be aware that that's possible. That can happen. And you rely on that too much, you can get screwed. But it also can be like, okay, yeah, I need to go get closer X. I need to get stolen base person Y. It's funny. I joked last week about like I putting myself in a position where I had to get Miles Straw. Well, I feel better about Miles Straw after listening to MLB moving averages and talking about John talking about Straw, especially Straw versus Edmund. I actually have both, and so felt better about one and worse about the other. But by the way, check out John. He does great work.
Yeah, I like I heard this on a podcast and I disagree, or I disagree, and here's why. Like, as long as it's presented well and someone comes back, I like, we all agreed on this stuff. I think it'd be really boring. Right. So I like when when I don't agree with someone smart, I kind of like that because it's fun, and B, makes me think about, am I missing something here? And I kind of go back and not necessarily change my mind, but I certainly take a second look and see if I'm maybe missing something that I didn't see the first time through. But sure. As you are doing your projections, looking at your rankings and stuff, what stats are you kind of looking at? We have an overabundance of stats right now. Is there certain ones that you're honing in on right now that you're really kind of focus on as you're making your projections?
I wish I had an answer for you there. I don't. I don't have that one stat, the magic bullet stat. I mean, I think it's dangerous to have that, but at the same time, I mean, I mean, we always look at strikeouts, I think, with pitchers. I mean, any sort of strikeout related stat is.
Have you moved from strikeouts per 9 to strikeout percentage?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I finally did a couple years. I was very stubborn about it, but I finally did a couple years ago. I mean, it makes sense, but just like thinking in your head of, what's good, what's bad, what's elite took a while to kind of recalibrate.
Is still difficult for me. I mean, it's like, I the benchmarks are different, but the benchmarks have also shifted too.
Yeah, it's true.
I did my pitching category targets article last week, and it's like, well, actually strikeouts barely went down, but that's more of a usage thing and not less. People are striking out just as much, but because pitchers aren't going as deep into games and all that, we're not getting, our benchmarks for actually what we needed to hit for like 80th percentile were actually lower than they were in 2019. Last year doesn't count, but 2018 was actually kind of what is a better analog, but even that it's a little slightly lower, but something to watch for there, but see what changes. I think if we do go universal DH, if and when we ever have a season,
I was told I'm not allowed to be negative, so I'm not going with that.
Who told you that?
I'm totally kidding. I was having a productive conversation with Mike Curlin on Twitter just about negativity versus positivity versus realism, and it was he was saying he doesn't want people to be negative, and I was saying I get annoyed. I just a general life thing. I get annoyed by kind of just positivity for no reason, blind positivity, and that's not what Mike was doing, but he was just trying to get everybody to be a little more positive. So I'm realistically, I think it's pretty bad, but I'm going to try and just kind of hope it gets worked out. But I'm kidding. I'm kidding on the negativity though.
I was pretty optimistic until last week. I wasn't optimistic, but I was still like hopeful. That's dwindling, without a doubt in my mind.
I'm a little scarred. My first big break in life was getting a job with the A's in '94, and my internship got cut short by like 6 weeks because of the strike. Yeah. And they stopped the season. I was that August 12th, and it was just worth like the middle of September before I went back to college. And it's just like, so I'm a little jaded. And I kind of saw how a front office worked in that environment too, and how they. I mean, we were trying to sell season tickets and rest of year tickets like the day before, and they knew it was not going anywhere good, and we just still like. So I'm a little jaded by my experience in that world, and I just know how these sides hate each other. But we're not going to get any good news until we have to get some news, and I don't think we have to get some news for probably about a month there.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that the owners are going to have their meeting this week, and probably try to generate an offer out of that. But I mean, I think it comes down
to how many owners want to get this done and how many owners are fine chilling for a while. And I don't know
how many owners are hard bent on breaking the union like completely, even though they've won the last couple of agreements, like in a landslide.
I just don't know I don't know what that breakdown is. I know there's some on each side. And you got to figure some of the bigger teams that make a bunch of money in April and May, like they got to, they're going to be lesser inclined than someone like the A's who, don't make any money in April because nobody goes to the games really. I mean,
right.
It's a different, and they still have to pay salary and all that. So it'll be an interesting breakdown of, who really cares about starting this in time. And some owners I'm sure don't.
I think you're probably right about that there. Sorry to sidebar you there, but
hey, no worries. I sidebar myself by making a joke, and then it went into a bad place. But
yeah.
What do you do with like hard hit metrics? There's a lot of stuff online about what hard hit makes people use. I maybe use it a little more than most. I'm one who I really like the extremes with hard hit metrics. Like if someone's really top 10% or bottom 10%, I take a lot of weight in that. Like kind of the middle, I feel moves around a lot. If you're a 40% hard hit versus 43 versus 37, I don't take a lot of weight into that. But if someone's in the high 40s and the 50s, or we've talked about guys that are really down to the low end, consistently in the low end, consistency plus extreme, I look at that a lot. But where are you with that? I mean, these are fairly new numbers. I think we're still trying to figure out if max exit velocity means more than average exit velocity. A lot of people think it does. What do you do with that kind of stuff? Barrel rate, hard hit rate, that sort of thing. So
I look to see if the bar is pinging one way or another towards the extremes, like you alluded. Do I have like what by rote, what is good numerically and what is not? Not necessarily, but I mean, I can see like anybody else. Oh, this is 95th percentile. Oh, that's good. And that's kind of what I look for a little bit there. And yeah, the extremes matter. I mean, Kevin Biggio taught us a lesson there. And so that's the sort of thing, and I want to pay better heed to that, because that was someone I probably should have crossed off my list last year, and I did not. So I think I occasionally fall into the trap of wanting to convince myself that this doesn't apply to this guy because of why? Because I like him.
Right.
No, that's not a good approach. You need to look at the data and see, okay, do I like him after looking at all of that?
Yeah, I think I've gotten a little better about that. I had to really get there with that too, because I get stuck on, I like this guy, and I'm like, I can kind of massage numbers, convince myself, and I've tried to like look at it in a little more, an even playing field and figure it out. But I also like extremes, but I also like guys who've taken steps up. Like if someone is, hitting the ball a little harder than the year before, and they kind of you can see that step up. Maybe you can see that they're kind of breaking off into a new level. I look at that too, but. And it's fun. It's hard because we have so many more stats than we had 10 years ago. It used to be 10 years ago you had 10 drafts of an ADP, and then the basic stats and a little bit of metrics and stuff. But I mean, it's the StatCast stuff has just completely kind of changed the way everybody looks at stuff.
Right, it has, and just that there are so many people out there that are ahead of me on that, and I realize I mean I can look it up, but when you're under the clock in the main or the online championship, you can't do a deep dive on a player while you're looking at 17 other players. I mean,
I've tried to, by the way, it doesn't work very well.
No, I mean, it's a disaster if you have any sort of attention deficit issues. You got to do your time ahead, put in the time ahead of time.
Yeah. I mean, you've got it when you're doing a live draft and you got a minute on the clock, you need to know who you want to take before you get to your pick. Cause if you're trying to figure out that spot, you're just dead in the water right there.
Yeah, of course.
There was a tweet I wanted to ask you about. Jake Holusker, who's Rotosaurus in the high stakes. He's a really good NFBC player. Commented that he looked at the top 150 and he kind of split it into players that he wanted. He pretty much were targets, guys he liked at ADP or before, guys that he, with the right roster build, maybe he would end up taking a little bit after ADP, and the names he fully crossed off his list as not drafting. He had split to about a third. He had 50. I mean, I'm using numbers, but it was 38%. It was essentially a third in each of those buckets. Do you cross guys off like that? Because I read that he's obviously a really good player. I maybe have 5-10 guys in the top 150. There's no way I'm ending this guy because everybody likes him more. We've talked a ton about Victor Robles last couple of years. There was no way I was taking him before he was going to draft. But I have to admit, it's nowhere near 50, and it's probably more like the 10 that I'm like, there's no way. And the other players, I'm like, well, maybe if it kind of works out, it depends what I need in the draft. But I was a little surprised by how big a number that was. Do you fully cross names off? How are you about do not draft guys?
I'm more like you. We've heard Casey Cha talking about this. We've heard other good players talking about this. It's a great idea, and it's incredibly freeing, I imagine. It helps you focus, and what it does, I think, is it helps you plan out rounds too. If you're not taking these 17 other players, well, okay, now that narrows my range to these other 10, right? Especially if you need a certain quantity, certain category, certain type of position. Well, now all of a sudden, okay, there's only these 3 in this that fit this category. Okay, I better take one now. And I think it's advisable. I think it's really good advice, but it does require that you really have, you don't start oh yeah, or whatever, you start getting in a crossing off fest without really diving on the player. Right? But again, all these, Jake, all these players are putting in the time.
Yeah.
They are doing that. And
it's an extreme knowledge of player pool to be able to get to the point where there's 50 guys you don't want.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right.
And it probably gets you out of the problem we were talking about earlier, where he's like, oh, this guy's 20 after ADP, maybe I should take him. And, if you're on your do not draft list, then that probably doesn't matter at that point because you're not taking him anyway. And you have your conviction there. I probably am a little, I think I'm with you. I think you need to do a little more of that. I tend to get to the point where I'm like, oh, at the right place, I take this guy. And, the times I've gotten myself in trouble in drafts, it's not really, I do my research, I put my time in, I got to, take the guys that I have found that I really like rather than just taking who's there. And I think that would probably a little step towards making me a better player if I were to do a little more of the crossing off thing so maybe I'm going to try and get in that a little bit, I think, and really figure out, I don't want this guy, sure. If he drops 8 rounds, sure. But that never happens in the main event. Someone's going to like him and not getting myself kind of sucked into the point that I'm like, oh, I'm just going to grab him now.
Yeah, I think so. I think some of this, though, is subconscious. We do it, but we just don't codify it.
It's probably true. Yeah, when we talk about enough players that I know, there's probably more than I think that I'm not going to end up with. And, someone will like him more than I do. But it's probably a really good practice, and it's probably a really good way to really get in the player pool and figure some stuff out, at least in the first 10 rounds there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about some players. But first, a note from our sponsors at WynnBET. There's one thing we appreciate here at RotoWire is making good decisions, and even more so, making the right decision. Listen up. I have an incredible offer for you with RotoWire's newest partner, WynnBET, the premier digital casino and sportsbook app. WynnBET is now the exclusive sponsor for RotoWire's fantasy podcast. WynnBET brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more all at your fingertips. Want to break from sports betting? Head into WynnBET's digital casino and take a spin on roulette, double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at baccarat. WynnBET is currently available in 8 states: Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia, all rapidly expanding. At WynnBET, the possibilities are limitless. WynnBET is currently offering all RotoWire listeners a risk-free bet up to $500 on your first wager. Download WynnBET now. That's WYNNBET. WynnBET, the exclusive partner for RotoWire's fantasy podcasts. So, Jeff, as I was kind of looking at players and kind of really starting to delve into ADP, there were a bunch of names that kind of jumped out to me that either I was surprised they were so early, surprised they were so late, or just kind of thought they were intriguing guys to talk about at their ADP. So I was going to fire through a bunch of them here if that works all right for you.
I like it. Let's go.
Good. I kind of left out the first top 40 or so because, everybody knows those guys. But there's one guy here I want to talk about. It's just someone that sticks out based on how high he's going is Kyle Tucker. He's ADP is 12.1. For ADP for this discussion, I used the last 3 weeks in FPC, so that was 71 drafts. So a pretty good number while also making it recent enough that, recent moves and stuff are taken in there. In his 2021 was Tucker's first full season, 294. 30 home runs, 14 stolen bases, 83 runs, 92 RBIs. Obviously a huge year. Hard hit rate's nice, 47%. Barrel rate's over 11%, really good there. Really nice strikeout drop. He's down to 15.9%. Dropped a swinging strike rate under 10%. So a lot of stuff that shows that Kyle Tucker's a guy that everybody loved for a long time. We're just trying to wait for him to get his playing time. Seemed like the Astros really kind of slow played him get up there. But now he's in the lineup. He's there every day. But the price is fully priced. It's 12.1. I mean, you're taking him over Mike Trout. You're taking him over Mookie Betts. You're taking him over Luis Robert. I guess it's Robert now. He finally fixed it back to the way we thought it was originally. So
really?
Luis Robert.
I never heard that.
Yeah, he changed it. He said, I found a story. He says he prefers Robert, which is always the way we thought it was. And then someone said it was Robert, but now it's back to Robert. So I prefer Robert, so I'm going to go with that. But I mean, you're taking him over really good stud players. You're taking him over, a Walker Buehler, Max Scherzer, like the type of starting pitchers that are at that range too. I guess my main thing with him is obviously he's really good. Do you think the stolen bases stay? Because the Astros have kind of, pulled back on stolen bases. Guys, start to get through their careers. They don't really run a ton. Altuve ran a lot, then stopped. But Tucker's still young enough. Maybe he does. Sprint speed's only 60th percentile, so I don't think he's a 25 stolen base guy, but he was 14 last year. So where are you on Tucker at pick 12? I mean, I look at his StatCash page, try and poke holes. StatCash page looks really good. It all kind of lines up, but the price is legit.
Yeah, couple of things. About the running, 14 of 16, only got caught twice. 8 of 9 the year before. 5 for 5 the year before that. Why would they stop him from running? I mean, I think there's more to stolen bases than just sprint speed. Obviously, it's reading the pitcher, getting the right jump, picking the right time. Seems like he's in the circle of trust there. I think the one concern for me with Tucker, and that might change this year, because he's more established, because Correa's gone. He batted 6 or lower, 100 games last year out of the 140. I don't think that continues. I mean, by default, he's moving up one step, assuming Correa signs elsewhere. We don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably going to be the case. Unless the Astros go out and sign somebody else that's dynamic, that's out on the free agent market. I think he'll move up at least one peg. But the counting stats might hurt because of that a little bit there. The lineup might be a little lesser, and if he's batting towards the bottom of that, I mean, we don't want that. But I think you're right. I think he's fully priced. But then again, the first round, do you want guys do you have to have a profit at pick 1.12, or is a building block okay?
I mean, I think a building block that doesn't get hurt is kind of all I'm looking for usually. And obviously you don't know about the hurt part, but it's like whenever I think about first round pick, if you just give me 550 plate appearances, I'm going to be happy. They're all going to be studs. The batting order thing is a pretty good point though. I'm looking at their, if they want to go right, left, he's 6th again right now. Like roster resource, I'm just looking right now, has him 6th. Granted, Michael Brantley, could get hurt anytime and suddenly he's hitting 2nd or 3rd, and that changes a lot. But
or they just flip flop him and Tucker. They could easily do that because Brantley's another year older. He's post peak, theoretically at least, and Tucker's he's firmly established now. There's no doubt about him. They're not going to screw around with him. We'll see. I mean, Dusty might change things a little bit there. Dusty likes his players to run though too. That's the other thing that I'm not really worried about him running. So I think if healthy, he should run a lot. So I'm not worried about that much. But
Michael Brantley was pretty damn good last year, though.
I know. I know that.
Higher average and higher OBP than Tucker.
True. Fairness, less power, and
For sure.
a little bit, and a little bit more defensively handicapped now, a little bit too. So that might mean fewer times where he starts or something like that too. Although there might not be a DH issue anymore. He might be even in L Parks. It might have a DH, but we'll see. I'm okay. I've done 4 12-team drafts, and I haven't drafted towards the back end. But when I do this first pitch Arizona speakers draft, I'm going to be in the, I think, 13th spot. So he'll be squarely in my crosshairs there if I don't take a pitcher.
So do you take him? I mean, obviously you don't have to answer it until you do it, but do you take him over Trout and Betts right now?
Trout, yes. Betts, maybe not. I think Betts is underpriced.
You just like Mookie because he's playing the golf tournament this weekend.
Is he?
Pretty good swing. No, he played at Pebble Beach this weekend. Pretty good swing.
Did he?
Too.
I didn't see him. I bet I'll be honest. I didn't watch much beyond Thursday's round. I watched a little today, but the thing is, he had a hip issue last year. He had forearm. He had a back, stomach flu. Now the negative is okay. Those could come back this year, but I think the positive spin is look, he was hampered last year and likely to bounce back. On a great offense still. If they add another bat, even better.
Yeah.
Mookie's the guy that was, a top 5 pick. And now he's going, later, much later. I'm going to be pretty tempted to take him a lot of times. I got him at like 2.8, I want to say, in one of my 12-team leagues with those NFBC 50s. And that was kind of a snap call for me, at least. I might wait. I might take the pitcher and then take Mookie in the second, given where speaking of looking at the ADP, that might be a possibility.
And it's funny that, we talk about digging deep into players. If you would ask me yesterday, I would have said, I take Trout and Betts before Tucker. I'm just going to do it. And as I dug into the players, I would definitely take Tucker before Trout, and Betts is really close. I love Mookie Betts, but that's a close call for me that I have to probably get pushed into making to make it. But I mean, you look at Tucker's year last year and it was better than Mookie's last full season, which is 2019, better than Mookie in 2021. So yeah, Tucker was really good last year and it's all very supported and all, it's all a little better and fully supported more than I thought it was. I knew he was really good, but I think he's worth that 12th pick. And I don't, it was someone that I thought maybe I'd be a faded at that price. And as I dug in deeper, I don't think I am.
I tend to agree with you.
It's why we look at players, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the next guy is one that I had to bring up because you're doing this with me is Sandy Alcantara, who you nailed last year. I think you loved him the last 2 years. You nailed him the last 2 years. It was that we're going to talk about your guys. I think you actually brought him up on the podcast when we did the Your Guys podcast with Scott Pianowski last year. He was one of your guys. You've fully nailed him. He's now back. He's now fully priced. He's a 3rd round pick. He's gone way up. 3.19 ERA last year, 1.07 WHIP, and 205 innings. Like threw a lot of innings. The Ks aren't huge, but they're up to 24%. He throws 205 innings, so that obviously solves a lot of the K problems when you throw that bulk of innings. He was 9-15 last year, which obviously we can't really control. He can't really control, but he's still in the Marlins, and he had 9 wins last year when he was really, really good. So that is wins are still one of our 4 categories for starters. So we got to think about it a little bit. But where are you on Alcantara now at the new price? And is it Alcantara or Alcantara? I always mess it up.
I think it's Alcantara. At least that's what I go with there.
There was an A's guy that was Alcantara, and it just messed me up forever now, not knowing which one's which.
Well, right. And there's the Red Sox, Izzy Alcantara, too, who...
Is he the one that kicked the catcher?
Yes, the judo kick. And then charge the mound after that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Not really. Kids don't do that. We're thinking about the kids, Scott.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I think he's overpriced a little bit. And I hate saying that because I love him. But first of all, I was only an adapter of James Anderson's love for him. I just was persuaded by James and went after it after that. I looked into him a lot more after James talked about him. Here's the positive. I mean, the velocity even went up last year despite all those innings. Velocity typically equals strikeouts. His strikeout, swing strike rate, or strikeout percentage was only like 24% still. So he theoretically could unlock another level, but hasn't yet. I think there's some regression coming, just a little bit. I think that just looking like the base runners allowed, I think he's gonna add a few more here and there. But I mean, man, that fastball's beautiful. 97.9 average fastball velocity last year. I think the team context will be incredibly frustrating again. And it was super frustrating.
How the hell he lose 15 games? That's crazy.
He lost, I swear there were 10 games where he gave up 1 or 2 runs and lost. Yeah. And it was, and then he had a couple of really obliterations too. One in Coors, which you could expect, another against the Dodgers, which you could also expect, but they were really both awful outings.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the swinging strike and the strikeout. The strikeouts went up a little bit, but swinging strike really jumped up. He was
a
10.5% guy in 2018, 2019, and 2020, 13.3% last year. So you're right. There might be another level to those strikeouts. It's definitely possible.
Yeah. I doubt he throws as many innings this year. I think you would kind of expect him to backtrack a little bit.
It's hard to project 205 innings, but the tough part for me with him is you look at ADP and you kind of look at who's who am I making a decision between, and Aaron Nole's right ahead of him and Lucas Giolito's right behind him. That's he's in prime company all of a sudden.
Yeah, he is. And I think I've settled on Giolito, or not settled on. I jumped at the chance of getting him in the 4th round of a 12er. It's okay. Yeah, I know he wasn't perfect. He was a little frustrating here and there, but I'm still there for that.
Yeah, I am too. I like Alcantra, but I'd probably go Giolito and Nola before him, which means I'm probably not going to get him many times because I'll probably have to make that decision unless he's the last guy left and I happen to be after it maybe. But I take the other 2 guys first. Another
guy in that range is Urias. What's your thought on him?
I always like him. I think that, last year was obviously, you talk about team context and, he had the similar numbers to Alcantara, but won 20 games. So it's obviously a huge difference playing the Dodgers, but I just love the elite control. I love everything about Urias, and I would go Urias definitely over Alcantara, probably over Giolito, and probably over Nola too.
So I'm lower on the crowd on him. Although I'm looking at it,
why is that?
I'm trying to figure out why. Actually, I think I think my whip projection's off on him. I'm going to write that down to fix that because
he was 1.02 last year at whip.
Right, and I've got.
He took a big jump down in his walk rate last year.
I think I need to. I think I baked in some regression, but I messed up somewhere there. It might be innings.
1.2 is a little high. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he should be 110 or so. And that would include
108, 115, and 102 the last 3 years.
Yeah. Do you think he goes another 180 innings again, or is that something? Because didn't he kind of wear down in the playoffs?
I'm trying to remember.
I think it's because they had him. No, I know why. It's because they had him relieve. They've had him didn't they have him close out?
They did, yeah. He closed out the World Series the year before.
No. Oh, it was game 2 of the NLCS. He pitched the 8th inning, and that didn't work out so well.
They tried too hard. It seemed like they tried too hard last year, but
because Max wasn't available, and so that threw off everything for them. And then plus they used Max to close out game 5 against the Giants. So that's probably they were all out of sequence there.
Did Max threw the pitch? There was the check swing to Wilmer Flores. Is that who it was? He was closing that game?
Yes.
Okay. I still have Giants fans who say the series hasn't ended yet. So it's.
I figured you were kind of.
I say something like, "Oh, you guys lost the Dodgers." People say the series hasn't ended yet. I'm like, dude, come on, stop. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's going to throw 210 innings, but I put him at a probably 180 again. I think that they. They kind of got off the babying of him last year. Finally, he went 185 innings, and I think that's probably a pretty good mark to go to.
Yeah.
Next guy I want to ask you about is someone who ADP was 20 last year. Is Francisco Lindor. ADP's dropped to 49 off the rough first year with the Mets. Hit 230 last year. Still had 20 home runs. Still had 10 stolen bases. Career high K rate, but also the walk rate is a career high. A lot of hard contact, though. His career high hard hit rate of 44%. Barrel raised up to 8.2%. BABIP was 248. Career's 292. You got to think that regresses back up a little bit. Sprint speed still about 70th percentile. I kind of like the new price here. I think he's still 28. I think you're sitting in, kind of a year after you sign with a big market team. I think he's probably a little more comfortable. Had a lot of stuff going on last year. The Mets are, surrounding him with some good players this year, signing some guys. Hopefully going to be in contention. Never know with the Mets, but with the injuries and stuff. But I like the new price in the the 15 team. That's the 4th round. I'd be all about him in the 4th round this year.
100% agree. My friends Rick Wolf and Lane Colton always talk about fading guys after a big contract. In this case, he wasn't a free agent, but obviously after it was essentially the same. He got the trade in New York, signed the big deal after a lot of protracted negotiations. Got to wonder if that weighed on him a little bit there. There's probably a lot of pressure produced, especially as the Mets started to fall off. And he got hurt too. So there's a lot of things working against him, but he still can run. You're getting some speed later after the first couple of rounds, first 3 rounds. And that's hard to find unless you really want to take a chance on like Mondesi or someone, some of the other players like that have obvious warts. I think batting average is probably never going back to like the 280 range, but it might come back to like 260, 275 even, or 270 maybe. Yeah, I'm on board with him.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, he started so badly. His first couple of months were so bad. You could just feel him pressing, and he felt like he wanted to do something every time he went up there. So I really do like the price. I think that's going to be one that maybe moves up a couple notches as we get to March and main events, and hopefully we start to see some spring training. I think he's one that we'll probably see sneak into the 3rd round in some drafts. Next guy is we talked about the Giants in the playoffs. Logan Webb was a playoff monster for them last year. Big breakout. Really good playoffs. It kind of boosted the hype even more. He is fully priced. He's at pick 61 in the ADP. Fascinating guy because his ERA last year was 3.03 after a year when it was 5.47. Big bump in the K rate. He's got to change his pitch mix. He took a slider from 15% to 28% usage. That pitch was really good for him. 231 slugging against, 47% whiff rate in the slider. So he's someone that as you dig in deeper, you can see how the 5.5 ERA in 2020, moved to the much better numbers in 2021. Huge bump in his ground ball rate, 61%. So you got a guy that's striking guys out now, getting a bunch of ground balls. He had 18.5% fly balls last year. It's hard to give up home runs when nobody hits a fly ball ever. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, that slider is such a Frisbee. I mean, that's the big thing. I'm a little worried that this is like a pop-up career year and might regress a little hard. Usually predicting regression is usually a pretty good bet, but I don't know, Scott. What if the pitch mix and the change, and maybe he changed his slider or something a little bit there, and that's permanent and stays? I don't know. I could see
he looked pretty damn good in the playoffs. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know Todd Zola's all over Logan Webb at this price. Todd did a lot of research on him, so maybe there's something to that there. The fact that I didn't have him last year is probably something that should force me to research more instead of like automatically forming an opinion one way or another. Like, I gotta get him. Or
is that better than me dropping him last year?
I mean, he was like his first 10 starts first 6 starts were terrible. So
he got hurt, which I really liked him, and I liked the new pitch. I was someone that I wanted to grab in drafts. I did late, and then he got hurt, and I'm like, someone I took late. I can't hold him right now, and that blew up pretty badly in my face.
Yeah. Well, we all make mistakes.
Yeah, you're gonna have, if you don't have a bad drop at some point, it probably means you weren't aggressive enough to steal a Scott Panowski line again. Sorry to name drop him twice in the same podcast, but I always like that quote. It's he got hurt. He missed all of June. It's not like he was out a week and a half. He pitched May 29th and didn't pitch again until July 9th. That's a long time out to hold somebody who at the time was intriguing but not really pitching great.
Yeah, I mean, you still could have gotten him back. That's the thing. It just didn't.
So I made 2 mistakes then. Dropped him and not getting him back.
Right.
Appreciate you pointing that out.
Oh, okay. Anytime. Happy to help.
Yeah, it's tough because I mean that's like the 4-5 turn in a 15-teamer, the 5-6 turn in a 12-teamer. Other pitchers in that range, we've got Chris Sale, we have Freddie Peralta, we've got Kevin Gausman, Max Fried. The guy in that range that I probably take over Webb is Max Fried myself.
Me too.
I don't go Gausman in Toronto. I think I go Webb in San Francisco over Gausman Toronto. That's a 10-pick ADP range. Like Webb's in a weird spot. There's a couple guys 5-6 picks ahead of him, a couple guys like 10 picks behind him. So it's kind of a dead zone starting pitcher right in that exact spot. But I go Max Fried ahead of him, and that's 11 picks further. So it might be tough for me to get Webb because I'd probably just take Fried in that spot.
I'd agree. I might even take Gausman over Webb, but I think part of the reason I'm okay with Gossman is the pitching coach in Toronto, and and Pete Walker. So and just the work he's done with
Did
a
they
lot
do anything good with any pitchers last year? I don't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit. But
Gossman's to throw in the tight pants. He'll be good to go.
I mean, I am a little worried about the contract year thing and all that, but I don't know. I mean, it's the thing is, do you try to be smarter than the trend and pick out the guy, that he's going to be fine with the new contract, or you just blanket, avoid all those guys or not consider it? I mean, these are a lot of different things you can do with that.
I really like Gausman. The move to AL East scares me a little bit. I will admit that it's just always a tough place to pitch. But I still like him. I just happen to like Fried more for sure, and Webb probably a little bit more with San Francisco. They do good stuff with pitchers too, obviously.
Clearly.
Yeah. So let's jump down a little bit in ADP and talk about a few other guys. But first, a note from our sponsors at Thrive. Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is an exciting player prop fantasy contest. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only the top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up for Thrive Fantasy today and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Here's how you claim your free RotoWire subscription. Visit rotowire.com/thrive. Deposit a minimum of $10 and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Play in your first paid contest and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. So, Jeff, we've gotten to the point where there's someone where I look at the ADP every time and I just don't see it. I don't get it. It's Dalton Varsho. I think we kind of mentioned him a little bit last week, but didn't really dive in. I get it. Like, he's projected to be playing center field. He's projected to be hitting the middle of the lineup. If you get a center fielder that's playing every day, eligible catcher. But I think that's fully priced in at his price point now. He's at ADP is 93 right now, so that puts him in the 7th round in a 15-teamer. You look at last year, 246, 11 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 95 games. I get if you get 12 stolen bases out of catcher spot, like that's huge. That really makes an impact on where you're ending up in a league. Hard hit was 39.9% last year, barrel 7.3. He dropped his strikeout rate. He had some struggles when he first came up. The first couple cups of coffee was striking out. He kind of dropped that closer to his minor league rates. The buzz that comes in is his 2019 numbers in Double-A, 18 home runs, 21 stolen bases in 108 games. I'm not doing it at pick 93. I think it's just a guy who's, has some upside, but just kind of okay. And it feels like a really high price for me. Even acknowledging that, if you get 12 stolen bases from catcher, like that's a big edge.
100% agree. I did pick him up in places last year. I also purposely didn't draft him because I wasn't sure he could hit. And I know the prospect pedigree is there. I'm still not sure if he can hit. I know he was better in the last 2 months. But that's a pretty hefty price to pay. You're really counting on those stolen bases continuing, and they might, but I don't know. And does he like spend all of his time in the outfield, or is this the last year he'll be catcher eligible? What's the story there? Do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you look at their lineup, and there's no one that really you're like, oh well, think he's going to split time in center field with this person. I guess Jordan Luplow, your boy Josh Van Meter from Cincinnati is there now, but they don't really have a lot of guys that are, we are worried about jumping in and taking playing time right away. So I guess playing time's there, but it's funny because I remember I looked at when I first looked at ADP, I'm like, I wonder where Dalton Varsho going. I bet you he's really popular. I bet you his ADP is going to be like 125 or something. And then it's 30 picks higher than even thought I was going to be an elevated ADP. And there's no way I'm in at the price.
I think that's like 50 slots higher than where I've got him, maybe even more. Yeah, I'm not going to get him either, probably.
I mean, you look at some of the names in that range, and we're talking, Chris Bryant, Will Smith, and Charlie Morton, Cody Bellinger, Yu Darvish, Stanton, the guy we're talking about next, Christian Yelich. Like, there's no way I'm taking Dalton Varsho over any of those guys.
I agree.
It's weird. I wonder where that price is going to settle in. Because obviously, it's a lot of drafts that he's going there, so people obviously like him in that spot, and getting stolen base and catcher is very appealing, but it's not going to be for me.
I'll be honest. I'm going to take Grandal over him. I'm going to take Wilson Contreras over him. Looking at catcher.
I'd take Hebert Ruiz over him. And that's 50 spots.
I'm not sure. I haven't fully formed an opinion on Ruiz. Yeah, probably over him. I might even take Christian Vasquez over him. I think he's a bounce back candidate, but we'll see. I mean, he was so bad last year, but he was so good the year before. I don't know. That's gonna be a tough call. I'm probably not going to be going after Varsho though.
Yeah,
I think he's too pricey.
That ADP sticks anywhere near there. I'm just gonna. We're talking about the guys I'm gonna cross. I'm not crossing him off, but at that price, there's just no way that I'm.
Yeah.
And there's no way I'm going to take him at that price. But let's talk about someone we talked about a lot last year is Christian Yelich. I took him in the first round in one of my main events. That didn't work out especially well. It's a spoiler alert there. Disaster of a year as a first rounder. Hit 248. The crazy thing is Christian Yelich played 170 games, hit 9 home runs. The 9 stolen bases, I get he had back issues almost all year, but 9 home runs, I mean, it's just wild. And then it's not just last year. He hit 205 in 2020. He was really bad in 2020 also. Granted, in 2018, he won the MVP. 2019, he was second MVP. 2019, he was 329, 44, 30. Like the elite of the elite. It's him and Bellinger were going back and forth the MVP. The K rate was really crazy in 2020. It was like 31%. You and I had a bet about it. I think I lost the bet. But
he got better as the season went on last year.
He was 24% last year. So higher than his elite years, but at least like in a range we can work with. Hard hit rate's still good. 48.5% makes me interested there. Barrel rate was only 7.6%, though half of his 2019 number. The walk rate's still strong. He's still only 30. I guess the major question on him is health. I mean, back injuries don't go away, and you worry that, his for what he does, stolen base is a big part of his game. And if he has a back injury, like it's just hard to think that he's going to want to steal a bunch of bases. The Brewers are going to want to steal a bunch of bases either. Where are you on Yelich right now? Because the price is obviously way different than it was last year. His ADP is 101.
Yeah, I think that's enough of a discount that if I need that type of profile, I might take a chance on him there. Factors that are negative on him here: the fly ball exit velocity was low, like 6 miles an hour slower. So that's and he hit a ton more ground balls. The other thing is the bad back. That was like he missed like a month, right?
Yeah.
So that's an issue. But you're talking about first round upside. If it was the back all along, and it's fine now, well, okay, great. Then you got a huge windfall. It's a guy I would really want to watch news reports on him closely in spring training and see if there's
normally this is not normally where I'd say what news reports, but I'll get in trouble for being negative, so I'm not going to do it. But the fly ball thing's interesting because that was his big deal. Was like, well, he hits the ball so hard, but he doesn't have a fly balls to be a home run guy, and that changed. He was 36% in 2019. He hit the 44 home runs. But you're right, he was back to 24% last year. So still hitting the ball hard, but always on the ground. He's a tough one because you see that 101 price. I think I'm back in at that price. I think if I'm that's a 7th round pick in almost a 9th round pick in a 12 teamer, 7th round, a 15 teamer. I think I'm back in based on the fact that he still hit the ball really hard. There's a lot of really good things there. And I think maybe I'm going to go with a lot of it was the back, but I am concerned about the stolen bases coming back because I just don't. A guy with a bad back, or even had a bad back in the past, you just don't want to, mess that up with a stolen base. That, when you're the best hitter of the team and you want him in the lineup, that maybe the team doesn't want him. So maybe if he steals 12 instead of 30, that's a pretty big deal. James
Anderson posed this question to me. I'm going to pose it to you.
All right.
Yelich or Bellinger?
That's such a good question. I'd love to be in a draft where I'm at the turn. I just take both of them.
That would be fun.
I think that'd be so damn fun. I think my answer to that question is Yelich barely, based on the fact that I see the hard contact still there, and Bellinger fully fell off last year. They both have injury concerns. Bellinger with the shoulder, Yelich with the back. I think Bellinger's going to bounce back. I'd love to get both of them. They're both targets for me at their new prices. But I'd probably go Yelich barely.
I'm slightly on Team Bellinger.
Okay. And I wouldn't argue that hard.
I think ballpark. I mean, not ballpark, but team around Bellinger is so much better too. How
much? Wise, Bellinger's probably 4 years younger.
That's also a point in his favor.
I think that matters too. Yeah, it's a close call for me. I think I go Yelich right now, but acknowledging in March that may change if I'm pushed to that decision. But I would with their ADPs, like you could be at what, a 7, 8, I guess like a 6, 7 turn and take both of them. That'd be a lot of fun.
It would be. Just got to hope that you get your closers taken care of by then.
Well, yeah, it's minor details.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always sounds fun in theory until you realize you have one pitcher and you're like, oh, I can't take any of these guys.
Right.
Speaking of pitchers, a guy who's down here in the same range, Justin Verlander. ADP is 107. He threw 0 innings last year, 6 innings in 2020. So it's going to be, what is that? Like 2.5 full years when we've really seen him pitching. It's weird though. You look at, like, if you look before that, he had 12 of 13 years where he threw 200 plus innings. So it was obviously a massive horse. It was awesome. He had 2.58 ERA in 2019, 2.52 in 2018. Sorry, 2019 was the other number. Elite strikeout to walk numbers, like a K- walk of like 30%. It was bonkers numbers. He's 38 now, coming off the Tommy John. So the question is, can he come back to who he was? How many innings does he throw? Where are you at the price on Verlander at 107 ADP?
I'm there. Chris List is all over him at that price.
He's always been Team Verlander. Yeah,
but and he makes a compelling point. The Astros outbid everybody for him, $25 million this upcoming year. I mean, that's something that's not a wanton, flighty sort of contract. I know there's no such thing as a bad 1-year contract. Well, $25 million is still $25 million. Plus, it's got a player option for 23. So obviously, they're confident that he's going to come back to some sort of decent form. And of course, that's league winning upside if he's anywhere close to what is 2019 form. Obviously, the argument against him is that we don't know what form he's in. But they've seen him throw. I think they have to have seen him throw. They can't. It's not completely sight unseen.
And if anybody would know, it'd be them, right? I mean, they know him better than their team. Yeah, the player option vests at 130 innings, so that's going to be. You'd hope he gets way past that number if you're drafting him, and he's, should be far enough away from the Tommy John where he should be, full go pretty soon, at least for spring training. Like I think that's, it's not like rushing back like Chris Sale was last year where we didn't get him back in time and all that kind of stuff, but should be ready to go. I think I'm in at the price too. 107 is definitely a spot where I'm fully intrigued with Verlander.
All right, very good.
Let's talk about another guy who had some injury issues and signed a contract and has not been good for his new team, is Anthony Rendon. Had the huge 2019, then signed with the Angels. It was kind of blah in 2020, played most of the season, played 52 games, only 9 home runs, hit 286, and then 2020 was a mess. Only 240 plate appearances. He had hip surgery in August. But when he played, he only hit 240. He only had 6 home runs. Ks were up a bit, but still 69%. So still a really good strikeout guy. His ADP is about 109. What are you doing with Rendon, a guy who's been, obviously a late second rounder the last few years, and now is last year and this year is definitely falling back in ADP.
I mean, for the pun, I'm triggered to say I want to say Rendon, but I'm there for that price. I mean, here's the thing. You're getting 0 stolen bases, 0.0 stolen bases. You know this. It might, the type of injury he has could come back. Man, that's such a nice discount. And I think we all look at like, okay, they're missing Trout. They Ohtani's amazing. Add like a healthy Rendon to that roster.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a different roster. The counting stats could be there galore.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got those two guys. You got Jared Walsh, who was good last year. He did an interview with Sirius XM in early November. He said he'd be fine for spring training off the hip surgery. Mm-hmm. I admit I'm a little scarred in hip surgery after what it did to Matt Chapman, coming back from that for the A's. So,
sure.
But that's, you can't really compare one guy to another. I don't know exactly I'm not enough of a doctor to know what happened there. But that 2019, he hit 319, 34 home runs, 126 RBIs. It's hard to find average, at this point of the draft. All the high average guys are usually up top anyway. This is a really fun range, though. I mean, we talked about Bellinger, Yelich, Rendon, Verlander, a lot of kind of last year's bums and injury guys that are studs that you could bounce back, or maybe could be on the downside of careers. But it's a fun range.
Fun range, interesting. There's a lot of bounce back third basemen: Bregman, Rendon, Justin Turner to a certain extent, DJ LeMahieu, Chapman, as you alluded to, Suarez. I mean, there's a bunch of third basemen that are like, okay, you're going to have to roll the dice just a little bit here. Yep. Or do you pay up for Austin Riley? I mean, that's the kind of question, obviously I hear Siege going, what about Mondesi? What about Mondesi? Yeah, that obviously if you need stolen bases, you go that route. Suarez is another one that was just a total flat tire last year. It's a scary position because then the names start getting kind of like after that, like around 15 or so. And we're going to draft more than 15 third basemen. So you want to get one of those earlier ones, I guess. But there's a lot of question marks too.
Yeah, I'm hoping Josh Donaldson ADP stays 200 because I'll be in on that for sure.
I got to tell you, I'm really liking the Jose Ramirez builds when I've done that there. At least in the 12, because you're locking in third base, you're locking in stolen bases from that spot.
There's aside from Mondesi, there's nobody else in this list that's stealing bases.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm saying nobody, like really nobody.
Yeah. You're right about that.
I just scrolled down to the 20th third baseman, and there's nobody. I guess there's just nobody.
Machado will get you 10.
Yeah,
maybe.
If he decides he wants to do it.
Brian Hayes might be a guy that gets it there. Chris Taylor qualifies at third, so there's some VR qualifies at third, so that might be sneaky. But hey, VR's got to sign somewhere for crying out loud.
Does Chris Taylor really qualify at third?
I see that. I gotta double check that. I'm looking at I saw the listing of positions, but
NPC second short and outfield.
Okay, so that's clearly erroneous. But I will.
He played 11 games at third base, so it could be if it's a 10 qualifier, he's there. If it's 20, it's not.
You know what? I'm looking at our custom rankings, and it was set at 10. That's why.
There you go. So
because last year it was set at 10.
Yeah, in some leagues he will be third base eligible, and in NFBC or anything he uses 20, which is probably Tout Wars and Labor. I don't think he will be. Yeah, it's right. You're right. Jose Ramirez is a big stolen base edge for sure there. Let's jump down a little bit in ADP. A few guys a little bit later I want to talk about real quick before we jump out of here. Jared Kelenic is ADP's 135. That's the 9-10 turn, a 15-teamer. Obviously a brutal first year with the Mariners. He hit a 181, which is crazy when you look at it. 377 plate appearances, 14 home runs, 6 stolen bases. In AAA last year, before he got called up, he hit 320 with 9 home runs and 143 plate appearances. Really good. K rate was 28% in the majors. He's never been that high in the minors. He was 26% for a little bit in high A in 2019, but he's never been that big of a strikeout guy. Hard hit rate's about 39%, so a little bent below average. 9.9% barrel, a little bit above average. 216 BABIP, you got to figure is not going to happen again. He's fast enough. His sprint speed's like 50% off, fast enough. He should be okay with that. Average exit velocity though, 20th percentile. He had a lot of issues with hitting the ball hard. Where are you on Kelenic? It seems like it's everybody thought this would be the next guy, and it's probably going to come at some point. But do you think it's this year in a redraft?
I don't. I think the swing and miss is just a big problem still. That's the tough part, but yeah, at some point he could just take off. He could. The thing is, if you want to get Kelenic, you want to do it now before spring training starts, before he starts like murder, death, killing some of these AAA pitchers that he's facing there.
He hits 3 bombs the first week of spring training, and that ADP is suddenly not 135 anymore. That's for sure. Yeah.
But 135 is actually in the main event is like pretty hefty price to pay.
Yeah, I mean that's a top 10 pick guy you're using every single week all year.
Right.
At least if it doesn't get hurt. You want someone you want to use. You're taking him instead of a second closer, a third starter. It's a pick that you have to like him taking that spot. It's not like you can just kind of be like, oh, I'm going to take Kelenic at 135. It's got to be you like him at that
price. I mean, there's a lot of projection in that ranking. I mean, and not like me doing projection. It's just projecting that he's going to take the next step. I mean, some people will buy in September. He did have a really good month of September. I think he had like an 850 OPS in September, if I recall, like what our outlook said on him there. We know that one month in September isn't necessarily probative. That especially depending on who you're facing when he's doing that and all that. But same time, we know the pedigree. We know the minor league performance. When he did get sent down, he was a destroyer of worlds. There's an argument made by James and others that AAA stats were inflated for hitters last year, so maybe you want to discount that a little bit more than you would otherwise.
Is that baseball? Is that teams putting all their good players at AA, all their good pitchers at AA? What was the reasoning behind that?
That facing pitchers that had a year off, perhaps, or maybe guys that facing quad A guys or something like that. Could be a lot of different reasons, but for whatever reason, he's kind of like pumping the brakes a little bit on guys that had massive AAA campaigns.
Interesting. Yeah, it's just not usually the type of guy that I take. You're just kind of you're hoping you get it the right when he takes off. But you mentioned in September. I mean, he was really good then. You mentioned the 850 OPS. obviously is a huge prospect pedigree guy. I just, I'm probably not going to get there, but I'm not totally averse to it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I right now I haven't gotten them. And the thing is, like, you're gonna want to be patient through his slumps and all that. And what if they just like last year, they continue to keep slumping? Trying to see who else you could go in that range.
I got a guy. The next guy up is right behind him.
Okay. I go Grisham over him.
The next guy I'm talking about is right behind him is Austin Meadows. He's 6 picks later at 141. Weird year last year. Everybody thinks he was bad, but he still had 27 home runs, 106 RBIs. Like, it still helped you.
He was used late. Yeah.
Still helps you. Hit 234, only 4 stolen bases, which is a problem. And then it's kind of like Yelich. Like, his 2020 was terrible too. He had 205 in 2020 after the huge 2019 where he really broke out. Hit 291, 33 bombs, 12 stolen bases, 43% hard hit rate. That was down to 37% last year. He was bad against lefties. He started platooning late, kind of in the last 2 months of the year. What do you think of Meadows? The price is way better than it was the last couple of years at 141. Are you back in at this price?
I could see it. I just don't think can he run at all? I mean, that's going to be one of the big questions is that done? I've got him for 7 bags. It's kind of a middling in between projection. That's
hit 198 against lefties last year.
Yeah. And, people were cutting him late. In fact, I think Shu and I grabbed him for the last week in one of our mains just because someone had cut him the week before because they were tired of him not playing a lot.
And he kind of changed what he does. He hit 10% more fly balls in 2021 than 2019. Launch angles way up. And I don't know if he was like selling out for power or maybe believed the power boost in 2019 at 33, but he had 5% less line drives in 2021 than 2019 and way more fly balls. So he was actually a different hitter. If you look at the stats and look at everything, hit the ball softer, hit the ball more fly balls. Like, there's actually a tangible change from 2019 to 2021. So that worries me a little bit rather than just the, maybe he was just a little banged up and he'll be back. Like, he wasn't the same guy last year. And he's still in there somewhere, but I just worry that if he struggles against lefties in the first month, the Rays will have no problem platooning him.
Yeah. One thing, and I think they're getting even more help in the outfield if Josh Lowe gets the call. I think, they're talking about Brujan in the outfield a little bit too.
Do they ever just stop calling up good players? It's friggin' maddening.
Yeah, it is. Well, they're a development machine.
They are. They're really good at that.
Yeah. The other thing too, in 2000, he got hit by a particularly tough case of COVID. So a lot of talk about how slow he would recover. Mm-hmm. I didn't hear that talk last season, but I wonder, was that perhaps like days where he had less energy or things like that?
Right.
It makes you wonder a little bit there if there was any sort of long-term ramifications with him. Every once in a while that does happen.
He was kind of an automatic for me when I first looked. I'm like, oh my God, take him in the 2nd and 10th round. I dug in a little deeper and I'm a little more tepid on it than I was when I first saw the ADP. I thought I'd be in for sure. And now I'm not quite as sure.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I mean, when we're prioritizing speed early, that leaves us with trying to chase power with guys that have flaws like this, that are batting average risks or platoon risks or things of that nature. It's the nature of or you get Franmil Reyes and he's only UT only. And you have to just deal with that. That's kind of where we're at with him. I haven't got him yet, but in any case, I haven't gotten Meadows yet, but we'll see if I get him some other time.
2 more guys I wanted to ask you before we jump out of here. The first is Brendan Rodgers, an ADP that jumped out to me at 161. At first I was like, that seems really high. He doesn't really done that much. He's kind of a post-hype guy, but last year he was hit 284, 15 home runs, 51 RBIs, but 0 stolen bases, 20.2% K rate, a nice drop from his prior MLB stints. They were kind of short, but it was good to see that the strikeouts did drop. Does not walk a lot. If you look at roster resource, they have him hitting 2nd, which is obviously a big deal in cores. Like, you get a lot of at-bats. His OBP was 328 last year, though. So you have to improve on that to maybe stick there, although the Rockies lineup, who knows what they do there. I think the key with Rodgers that people are looking at is the second half was really good. I think he hit like 296 in the second half. So kind of maybe, with that post-hype, maybe we're seeing the prospect that we thought we were going to get. The weird thing is the stolen bases. In 2018 in AA, he had 12 stolen bases. Since then, he's been in the majors. He's stolen 0 bases in the majors since then, and he's not even attempted a stolen base in his whole time in the majors. So I don't know if he had a bunch of injuries. Maybe that they've kind of tapped him for stealing bases. Maybe he just wasn't comfortable in the majors. Maybe he's going to get his feet wet and then run. But it's hard to know if you're going to get those maybe 8 to 12 stolen bases you really like to get if you like him at this price.
Yeah, I mean, he fits the perfect Rockies prospect mode where call him up, but then don't really commit to playing him, scuffles a little bit, and then finally, he's okay. He's now 25 and he's a full-time player for the first time, or in some cases even older, like Charlie Blackmon, and then they hit their stride. I think that's possible with him. I think you're right that the stolen base thing is weird, and it's a problem because he's a middle infielder.
Yeah,
you want to get stolen bases there. I guess if you get Jose Ramirez, or you get, better yet, Alberto Mondesi at third base there, then you're making up ground. So then, okay, well, I can live with a middle infielder that doesn't run. But you got to have some category juice. It's got to be power or it's got to be speed, usually with one of the two. Because I don't think the counting stats will be great. Rockies, even with – I don't think this Rockies lineup is going to be all that great. I mean, of course, Field will make it look at least league average, but in truth, it's really not. I think it's going to be below average. I'm pretty sure Story's going to go elsewhere. He's one of the guys that's unsigned that we'll see where he lands.
No way he's back, right?
I can't see it.
He was so pissed at them at the deadline. I have a hard time seeing him come back.
I agree.
I mean, unless there's nothing else there and they offer him some cash and he like a 1-year prove-it deal, but I think he's going to get some. He's going to get some.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a weird lineup. You look at it, it's like Tapia, Rogers, Blackmon, Crone, McMahon, and then kind of nothing. Connor Joe, Sam Hilliard, Garrett Hampson, who we know that I don't really doesn't do much for me, and then the bench is kind of dead. It's not. It's cores and all that, but it's not really a lineup where you're like, I'm worried about going to cores and facing these guys.
Yeah, they'll still. I still worry about pitchers and cores. It's still. But yeah, I'm not like thrilled. That's the thing. Like Coors Field makes good hitters elite. It makes pretty good hitters very good. It doesn't make bad hitters good though. Yeah, and I'm not saying Rogers is a bad hitter, but I'm just saying, I just remember the lessons. Like it's always, and I know there's extenuating circumstances. And the guy I always think about is Ben Petrick, but I'm sure there's a better example. But
I feel like they had like 5 catchers in a row that were going to be really good, and none of them worked out.
Yeah, Petrick had like all sorts of like disease issues and health issues. So I mean, it's a little bit different with him. But yeah, point is that it's not a cure-all.
Last guy I wanted to ask you before I get out of here is a fascinating guy. ADP 175 is Ranger Suarez. He was a guy that was a really good reliever for the Phillies from May to July, and they started having him start games. Kind of the first 4 starts, he threw like 3 innings, 4 innings, 4 innings, 4 innings, and all of a sudden just took off. He started 12 games in August, September. He gave 3 runs once, 2 runs twice, and then 1 or 0 runs in the rest of those starts. Like it's just, and granted, the first 4 of those were under 5 innings, but after that, they were all over 5. Didn't give up runs. Overall, hit 106 innings at 1.36 ERA. The K rate was pretty good, 25.6%. I broke it down. I looked at was he 30% as a reliever and 20% as a starter? He actually wasn't. He was 25% as a starter. So a little bit down from a reliever, but not like, we've seen a lot of guys that jump to the bullpen all of a sudden that everything rockets up, velocity and strikeouts and all that. I kind of went into this thinking like I'm going to poke some holes here, but hard hit rate was 93rd percentile. It was 31%, 2.6% barrel, 59% ground balls. So like he was striking out 25% and giving 6% ground balls. Like that's not many home runs given up. Where are you on Suarez? ADP's 175. So I feel like that, for 1 year of being good, that's pretty fully priced. But I kind of figured I was going to be out on him based on the price. But once I look deeper, I don't think I am.
I'm all in on him.
I like it.
Right. I think he should be like 130-ish. I think the big concern is how many innings he throws.
Yeah.
But I don't see a red flag at all.
I tried to find one really hard, and I was figured I would. Usually guys like this, I can find something. I'm like, oh, well, that's why I'm not going to take him. But I really couldn't get there with Suarez.
Yeah. I maybe it's the Phillies defense will be bad again because that's actually a pretty fair assumption. But besides that, and speaking towards the ground ball rate, that's where I'm getting at that. But yeah. I don't think they're going to have, like, if Didi is their shortstop again, that's not great. But I think that he's a really solid skills pitcher and he should be fine.
Yeah. I mean, he only throws 93, but it's like, okay, he throws that sinker. It's kind of hard going down, and that's where he gets all the ground balls. But I kind of like it. I think that's 175. That's the the 13th round in a 15-teamer, obviously deeper in a 12-teamer, I'm all for taking him there. I think that I'm interested to see where that price lands. I think you might be right. I think he actually might move up a little bit. And
I would predict, at least in the main events, that he will go pre-150.
Yeah, so before the first break, so the 9th or 10th round. I think I would not bet against that. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Intriguing guy, though. It's just wild how it just kind of out of nowhere. And he was, he threw 2 miles an hour harder with that sinker in 2021 than 2020. So maybe that, you don't throw a ton hard, getting 2 miles an hour makes a really big difference. And he went from people, hitting that sinker pretty hard to nobody hitting it. And, he didn't have a batting average against over 210 on any of his pitches. He throws 3 pitches a lot too. 3 pitches over 20% of the time. I kind of was, one of those people that I thought I'd be out on, but again, the joys of digging deep, guys. I think I'm in at the price.
All right. Very good.
Anybody else you want to talk about before we jump out of here? Anything else on your mind?
No. Just busy week. Go Bengals. Who day? And, other than that, so next week I'll talk to you about this, but we might have to do it on Monday morning.
I kind of had already put that in my calendar.
Yeah, in fact, no, there's no might be. We will have to do it Monday morning, or you'll have a better guest, a better co-host, I should say, along with it there, which is win for everybody. But that's okay.
Yeah, it's always tough on Super Bowl, but then when your team is in it, that's really tough. So yeah. I'm still not talking about football though, just so we're clear.
Yeah, I know. It's you've had plenty of good times with the years.
I'm actually good on it. As I looked at that game, I really think the Rams are a better team anyway.
Yeah, maybe so.
I actually feel pretty good about that game. The Rams probably should have been up early and up more than they were early, and then it's just Niners are tough and played hard, but I think the Rams are a better team.
I'm nervous about this upcoming game. We've defied the odds before, but I think the Rams are also a better team than the Bengals. But I'm going to put on those blinders anyhow on Sunday.
Yeah, not be able to block their front four might be tough, but you guys seem to find a way.
Yeah, win despite not allowing 9 sacks. That's a neat.
I was going to say, you get 9 sacks and win. Like, who knows? But and stop Patrick Mahomes for 2.5 or 2 halves and a little bit of a quarter. I mean, or 2 quarters and a little bit more.
Twice.
Yeah, twice. I still can't get that game last week. I have no idea what happened. They were 21 points like that, looked unstoppable and didn't score again. It's wild.
It's bizarre.
Gotta like it though. So. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We do appreciate you guys listening all year. If you do enjoy listening to us, you can please rate and review the podcast. That'd be fantastic. Also, it helps us a lot out. Helps people find the podcast. Always a good thing. You want to follow Jeff on Twitter? He's at Jeff_Erickson. I am at Scott Jenstad. We'll be there talking baseball, talking sports, whatever we have. We're talking. Jeff will be probably talking Bengals, so you may want to avoid that for a little bit for another week or so. But thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back at you next week. It might be Monday morning. We'll be back at you next week either way. So take care. Have a good week. We'll talk to you then.